Hey everybody, Josh here. Welcome to interview number 8 of my series, Scaling Your Divi Web Design Business. In this interview, I got a chance to talk with Daniel Dye, who is a partner with Gruffy Goat Web Design based out of South Carolina, and then he's also a partner in Superfly, which, again, if you saw my interview with John Wooten, is one of the premium plugin and child theme makers in the Divi community. Daniel talks a lot about their growing company, which is rapidly growing on both ends for Superfly and for Gruffy Goat. And with Gruffy Goat, we talk in more detail about how they hire, what they look for, the processes that they have in place to make sure they're able to make sure every project is profitable and that they're maintaining happy clients. We go into some really good practical advice and details on the tools they use. And again, how they're kind of looking for talent to manage such a rapidly growing company. It was a great talk. You can tell Daniel is super smart with this stuff. He's a business-minded guy. So maybe if you're more on the web design thing, but you're needing more advice and more ideas for the business end of things, this is definitely your episode. And likewise, if you're more business-minded, Daniel's got a lot of really good advice to help you take things to that next level for your Divi web design business. So enjoy this talk and let me know how it helps you out. Daniel, thanks for taking some time and chatting with us today, man.
Yeah, man. Good to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Awesome. Well, like I said, we're hoping our connections are clear so we can have this chat. We had some issues getting started, but we'll see how this goes here. So to start, why don't you just give us a snapshot of the businesses you're involved with right now and what this kind of look like for you?
Yeah, definitely. So after an 8.5-year sales and marketing career, I recently joined Nathan Duval in Gruffy Goat and also on the Superfly side of things. So Gruffy Goat is more our freelance web design business. We also do a lot of white label development work for larger agencies. And then Superfly is our theme plugin and layout shop where we sell a lot of Divi items.
Gotcha. Yeah. And I talked to John Wooten in the series a little while ago as well, and he had some really good input with his business with Artillery Media and then also with Superfly as well. So why don't you give us a little snapshot of what you do in each of those businesses?
Yeah, and you actually just asked me to do that, and I just told you about the business. So,
oh, you're fine.
not answering the question at all.
That was a very long question.
Yeah. So my role with the business is Nathan started both of these kind of on his own and kind of as a side hustle while still managing a full-time job, and has since. At the beginning of last year, actually, we both left other full-time jobs to come do this together on a full-time basis. So my role now, Nathan, who's founded it, was his strength was more in the support and development and design, kind of more strategy side. And he and I had talked about my background with business development, sales, marketing, that kind of stuff. And so my role is kind of overseeing the day-to-day business operations, making sure everybody gets paid. Dealing with pricing and, going into the, all the proposals, following up with prospects, that kind of thing. So just your basic business development, and then business management side overseeing finance and accounting and those kind of things. So it's a little bit of a unique mix with the sales and finance business side, but it's been a really good fit for us. And so far it's been a whole lot of fun. We're glad we made the leap.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. So since the businesses are similar, and I'm sure you do some things, the same for each business, but maybe let's focus on the Gruffy Goat for right now, since I think a lot of people could take some expertise from that as far as that being your service end of the web design stuff. When you guys started that, now you guys are cousins, right? So you kind of already had a relationship formed there. So it wasn't like, you hired one another. When
we joke about.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say we joke about that being the only two family members that could work together full time, but it's been a good fit.
I was just going to say, and we might hit on that too, because I'm curious about how that relationship is between family members, because as everyone knows, family business stuff can be tricky, and if something goes awry, or I imagine you kind of have to segregate work stuff from personal life. I don't know how close you guys are out of the business stuff, but I'm sure that can be tricky, right?
Yeah, it's actually been really awesome. I think the fact that our skill sets are so complementary, mine being more client facing and outward focused, and Nathan's more, he enjoys the behind the scenes and the creative and kind of being, doing that support side. It's been a really, really good mix. And even a year in now, almost, of doing this full time, I literally we joke about this. We can't look back. We haven't had like a blow up, or it hasn't just, we haven't both tried to escape or anything, but it's been really fun. It's a really good fit. And it's something we talked about for the last couple of years on and off, just trying to find the right time to launch and do this together full time. And so far, no looking back. And we're really glad we were able to make the jump.
Well, that's awesome. And it sounds like, because most people, like in my situation, I'm wearing every hat. I'm doing the sales, the business development, the designing, the coding, the support. I'm doing every hat, kind of getting to that next level. But you guys, it sounded like from pretty much the start, had that kind of complementary services, right? So was there at any point where was Nathan doing everything, or did you guys kind of start, sharing a lot of the workload?
Yeah. So at the beginning, obviously, when it was a side hustle for Nathan, he was doing everything. He was overseeing, he was doing every part of it and working another full-time job. So it was, he just kind of got to a point of critical mass where it just couldn't take anything else on his plate and couldn't grow anymore. And it was having to turn away business. And, obviously getting started, it was a little tight financially. I know he obviously had to, we worked out kind of an equity for time type split. So I was only getting paid on new business I brought in. And I had been saving up for a while at my last job as well to have enough money to kind of launch and pay all my bills. My spouse works full time as well. So it was a little easier for us than it would be for some people, that are doing this on their own. But, we started off and again, as a business developer and a seller, I loved that, that thrill of the chase, and I loved the hunt. And Nathan had built a really good SEO optimized site that already had some nice leads coming in. And so my role was more or less following up with those and overseeing that, being that gatekeeper for people that we would talk to. And it was a really, really successful year. We grew almost 3 times revenue from beginning of the year to end of the year. So it was a really successful first year. Hired a couple people, and then we're rocking and rolling. Wow,
that's awesome. So initially when you were brought in, it wasn't like a retainer of hours or something like that. It was more of a, if you bring the business in, you get a certain percentage, or that's kind of how that all, I'm sure it changed pretty quickly after that once the revenue started coming in. But that's probably a good model for people to follow if they're looking for more of the sales and business development, and I would imagine.
Yeah, I think it really is. And I probably for 2 reasons. I think a true seller really isn't scared away by having to work for commission only. If you're confident in your ability to sell and close deals, you should be able to go out and find people that can work with you. And I actually came out of a background where we were selling more human capital, HCM software and technology, where a typical sale for us was $50,000, $100,000 and up, $50,000 to $100,000 or higher. So coming in and asking someone to spend $3,000, $5,000, $10,000 on a website was simpler for me.
Small potatoes from your old stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And honestly, we have a passion for that. We're not really looking to get into selling $100,000 websites. You get that's a whole nother level of headache and, a thing that we're not really set up to do. Our passion is still going to be and always will be those awesome and affordable websites to small and medium businesses. That initial, for Nathan to take that risk of being willing to part with money for new deals. Obviously, one of the things we had to do, we did have to raise prices a little bit to be able to cover 2 people. When he started, he was building sites anywhere from a few $100, at $500, became $1,000, became $1,500. And so then when I came in, we found a way to make a little bit more. And going forward, that's really been the plan. Obviously, at first we were able to I was selling, he was doing all the building, and we've moved into a phase now where he actually he kind of is the final checks and balance before it launches, but isn't actually doing the dev or all the building on the front end anymore, just because of the volume for us right now.
Well, and that's a good point and you guys aren't alone in that. I think most people are in that range, especially after talking with everybody in this interview series, is even people who have the bigger web design businesses. It's the average small and medium-sized business that are our clients. And so I know for me, my typical range is anywhere between 2,000 to 5,000. And it's a little easier as a one-man shop to be more profitable, but I guess my question now would be, as we're kind of talking about your ideal clients, where those sit, how do you keep those low-end clients profitable? If there's an automotive shop that wants, maybe they could spend a couple grand. Do you guys do templatized trial theme kind of stuff since we're using Divi, or how are you guys maintaining those lower end clients and keeping it profitable?
Yeah, that's a great question. So that's actually the conversation to have with every prospect is, what's the budget? Do they want to go through multiple rounds of revisions with a custom design? Do they want to do a bunch of search engine optimizing their site? What are they looking to do? And we can start what for us lower end would be a couple $1,000, $2,000-$3,000 like that, on up to a full custom designed build that's going to be closer to the 10 range. So for us, I think to be profitable, and I did want to go back one more time. So for that small business owner that's kind of they're at that point where they're like, all right, I'm either having to turn stuff away, or I'm too busy, or I need to outsource a little bit. I think Nathan, when he started, did a really good job of surrounding himself with great freelancers, which I think is pretty much the standard. What everybody does is if they need a little extra design or a little extra dev help or a little extra support, there's a lot of great communities, a lot of great Facebook groups where you can connect with people. I know Divi Freelancers for Hire, a good one. I think Nathan started that one. So we use those a lot and have used those in the past. And I think you kind of hit those milestones where you get to a place that, if you get to a place where you're spending more on outsourcing than you could hire someone for, that's when you kind of make that choice to, bring somebody in-house versus continuing forward to manage everything. And I didn't really answer the specific question you just asked, but I think that's kind of that. You kind of have to find that point where you're spending more on freelance labor, in my opinion, than what it would cost to bring someone in-house to help do those same things. And that's kind of where I think we're to that point now with design and development, where we're like, we need to bring some other people in. We're not making quite enough to hire a, seasoned developer or a high-end designer, but we're getting there, and those are kind of the next steps for us.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, Daniel, because that is the kind of the first most important step before you get to, making sure things are profitable, because as you add more people. And particularly one thing we've been talking about with everyone in this series is that once you start bringing people in, inevitably there's going to be more time in training. People do things differently. And one thing we've talked about, and I'm not sure what this looks like for you guys, but one thing that we do that I've talked to a lot of people about is trying to basically empower people to be able to hit the ground running, and without having to sit down and micromanage every freelance designer or something like that, because that can get really tricky. So I know for me, one thing I'm working on doing with my tutorials and all that stuff is to have basically the way I do things out there. That way when somebody gets in there and builds a site, they can basically have a page of information without having to go to me for every question. Now, I don't know what that looks like for you guys, but do you have any sort of like onboarding process for freelancers or anything like that?
Yes, that's a good question. Right now, no, that's actually an area. So we hired a director of operations to come in for 20 hours a week. We hired her a couple months ago, and she's been helping us build out all those processes. So right now, the biggest fire right away was that client facing. We have we generally have anywhere from about 12 to 18 projects in the pipeline at any one time, or that are in some stage of design, development, or whatever before they move into that support and maintenance afterwards. And our operations director has been building processes for that onboarding, for the initial client communication, to go through design. So those are all things we've kind of focused first on client facing. I think the next step for us would be that of freelancer. Generally, we're sending a mocked up a PSD or a sketch file now, a little more common, to a developer, and they're building it to spec. When we have something like that, a Divi builder, or we do a lot of custom WordPress stuff too, so we're using somebody for that. But process is definitely an area that we're trying to improve on right now. Another thing for us was interns. We hired a couple interns this last year, and had a design intern, more of a development and support intern. We actually ended up offering a full-time job to the support and development intern afterwards. And so, Will, if you're watching, we'd love to have you. But he's going to let us know. He's supposed to get out of school, graduating school in May. And so he knows our system. He knows how we work. So being able to kind of have interns, or a farm team, if you will, to then have people that you can hire from later has been something I think we're going to try to continue. Okay,
that's a good analogy. Yeah, having kind of a farm team. Yeah. So now in that case, are those local folks? Are you targeting like colleges nearby, or how did those come about?
Yeah, these two happen to be local. I think for us that made it a little easier at first, just getting comfortable with that. Long term, a couple of our goals as business owners are to be able to work from anywhere and kind of have that flexibility and work with people from anywhere. So I would love to open it up to people that aren't here locally in South Carolina. But for now, this first time they were both local from Clemson and Bob Jones here in Greenville, close to Greenville.
Yeah, and I know to start, I know it's easier to have folks locally, not only to be able to get face-to-face time and build that relationship and trust, but just the logistics of time zones, all the different things. And of course, when you're working remotely with somebody in a different country, there's the issues of, the different pricing. And I know like last year I was working on a project with a guy in the UK, and he was subcontracting some work out to somebody else in like Poland or something. And when it was just really tricky with all those different time zones and the overlap. Like I was editing a CSS file and I didn't know that they were editing the same file, and so they were like overwriting. So that can go, can all get really tricky. So I would imagine starting local is probably ideal. So I imagine, since we're using Divi, going back to my kind of initial question of maintaining, profit with some of these smaller jobs, has Divi really helped you out with that? Do you guys have like templates and library items and stuff like that saved for some of the smaller deals?
Yeah, definitely. And Divi's been a huge part of our success to this point. And I think, obviously the Superfly store right now, we're selling exclusively to Divi users. And we actually currently in-house, this is something most people don't know, we actually don't use our own themes to build sites most of the time. We generally just build from scratch in Divi because it's so intuitive and quick and easy. So that's actually an area where as our price points moved up a little bit, we want to use Divi to get back to our roots of being able to just provide a template to someone and let them see, hey, this is, I can have this look and feel, and it's at a much lower price point where we're just putting content in and basically customizing a theme that already exists. So whereas today we're generally building with Divi, but building from scratch.
Gotcha. And I know for me, one thing I'm going to start doing this year is I want to build essentially a catalog of child themes for my clients. And I'm not going to call them child themes because most clients have no idea what that means, but I'm essentially going to call them templates. And if a client says, listen, 5,000 is just too much, we can't do that. But if they could do 2,500, I could say, well, listen, there is a cheaper option for you, a more affordable option. I don't want to say cheaper. More affordable is definitely better verbiage there. But, we could say, listen, there's some templates that you can choose from. We can replace the content, the colors, add your images. And this way, you could at least have a professional site designed by us. And we don't need to get into the custom work, but we could always add on to that. Sounds like you guys are kind of doing that similar. I mean, do you have a plan B for clients? If you try to get somebody at 10,000, but they just are not going to go for it, do you have an option for those cheaper sites to try to at least, get a client and hopefully get a support maintenance plan out of them?
Yeah. So our absolute floor right now is $3,000.
Okay.
So if they don't have at least $3,000 to spend, we don't have a solution. And I generally refer them back to Divi Freelancers for Hire, and they're able to find a connection there with that day. And I've had several people write me back with success stories of, hey, thank you so much for connecting me back with them. And I'm hoping those are the kind of things I think long-term, 2, 3, 4, 5 years when they're ready for that next site, hopefully, that's something that kind of comes back around and we have an opportunity to work again. But we do know there's a huge need there. And obviously we all get the ones where it's like, they don't choose the request a quote option on your site. They just write you a letter or an email that says, I've got $150 and I need an e-commerce site. And it's kind of like, well, so while I don't think we'll ever get to that level, I do think, that $1,500 to $3,000 range, I think there's still a lot that could be done with basic templated sites, even starting with like a one-page sales landing page on up to a, nice templated site. And we because our whole passion as business owners is to target the affordable, and not when I say target, I mean help and allow them to, have an online presence.
Right.
We want to be able to help those ones that can't spend $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000. So we've talked about a couple kind of creative ways to do that, but one obvious way would be pick a theme, we'll dump your content in, and it's all time and money for us. If we can build it in less hours, we can charge less. So
and I know that
we're still able to help.
Yeah, help those smaller clients. And that's what the struggle with that is. Like, I can imagine if you try to charge, $7,500, say, for a project, but then you offer a $2,500 template, the client could very easily be confused as to, well, why was that one $5,000 more? Like, what's the difference? And I know for me, I'm going to try to kind of put all that information in like an FAQ page or something like that. That way I can save myself a lot of time with explaining. That way we can say, listen, here's the difference between a custom built site and a more template style site. But I think either way, that's a good model because, it sounds like you guys, you found your niche with that price range. I imagine it's, probably in between that 3 to 7,500 or so, which again is fairly average. I'm just now raising I have been like doing one-page landing sites at 1,500, and then I've been offering to go up from there. But I'm getting ready to go ahead and start. I think 2,500 will be my baseline moving forward this year, just because until I scale, until I can make that a little more systematized and profitable, those projects are still eating up way too much time for me. But either way, for folks listening to this, I think, if you can be practical about how low you can go, but maintain profit, ideally. I mean, it sounds so corporate-y to talk like that, but at the end of the day, if you're not making money, if you're if you're paying money to build sites, it's not making anyone's day. And for the person who's getting that work, there's nothing worse than working with a stressed out web designer who's worried that they're going to make $5 an hour, So I think that's a good solution to be able to cater to those small to medium sized businesses. But then also you're weeding out those tire kickers. And I've kind of realized that too. Like I don't want every quote or every proposal that comes in, or I don't want every inquiry. Some people are just out there to get $100 website, and I'm like, go check out Wix or talk, and I don't want to refer those people, because vice versa, you don't want to refer somebody that's going to be an awful client to somebody, because then it's like, well, then it's just a nightmare for everyone. But I think it sounds like you guys probably have a good read on, okay, if this client has 1,500, that's a decent sized budget for maybe a starting designer or something like that. And so I imagine like in Divi freelancers for hire, that could work out pretty well. And you guys,
I think for us too.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, I think for us it kind of just, as far as building your business, it kind of just depends on what lifestyle you want. I know for the typical freelancer that is, that's doing 2, 3, 4 sites a month, they can be making anywhere from 50 to 150 a year, working on their own, managing their own schedule, doing everything they want to do, working as hard as they want to work. And they may decide, hey, I've got a family I want to spend more time with, or I want to travel more, or I want to work less. When you decide to take that step to grow your business, and now you have employees and you have benefit plans and you have multiple companies for us to track accounting and profitability, you're deciding that you're going to spend more of your time and energy tied to your business. Whereas if you got in freelancing, at the beginning, to get away from a lot of that, that's something you have to weigh. Is more money, or the potential to make more money, worth the extra headaches, the extra time that it takes, dealing with having employees versus it's just you're managing all of that from scratch. So that was a big decision Nathan had to make when he and I talked. Was he comfortable? Did he just want to do it on his own? Because he could have. He didn't need me for his business to be successful. He could have kept doing what he was doing, but we thought we could build something better that could help more people if we did it together. And I think that's kind of what it came back to for us, was we want to build this because we wanted the chance to have employees and help, shape other young and junior developers, designers, and help them grow and help them have careers. And we wanted to be able to help more businesses. So that was a decision we made, not the right decision for everyone, but it is something definitely to keep in mind as you're, for people listening, when you're on the fence of, hey, I need some help, but I'm not sure if do I want to grow? What does that look like? So just stuff to think about. That's gold, man. That is a great point, because if you can work it, if you're happy just being a single freelancer and taking the projects that you want to take on, and it's working for you and you're providing for your lifestyle, your family, and that's all you want to do, then that's fine. And that's what's so cool about web design. There's no right or wrong in this. It's whatever works for you. I know, but the struggle with that and what I've faced is two things. Number one, when you're a solo freelancer, you'll find out if you do good work and you do your work on time and you help a business grow, you're going to get leads, and eventually you're going to get overwhelmed. It's inevitable that and you're going to have to either turn away business, which that can be tricky, because if people find out that you're turning away business, or you're not hitting deadlines, or that can be really tricky. You could potentially hurt yourself with referrals and things like that, because nobody's going to refer somebody who's like, well, Josh is too busy to take on projects. He's wrapped up for like 3 months. He can't take anything on. That can be pretty detrimental to a freelancer, and vice versa. For me, I just got to a place where I had been doing it at that point, it was about 6 years before I started doing more Divi stuff. And I just I just wasn't fully content at what I was doing. And I was like, I love this, but I've just been doing the same thing for so long. I've got a lot of systems and processes in place, but I really want to take this thing to the next level like you. And again, that's not for everyone, because I realize
it's not necessarily going to save you time. And I know that scaling, while it will probably free you up to do the work that you do best, it's going to be much more complex, right? I mean, you're dealing with, like you just said, team management, more financials, you know, particularly everything that goes into that. You're piling a lot more on. But still, for me, I think the value of freeing yourself up to do what you do best is invaluable. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think for the freelancer that's comfortable running their own show, I think the best way to get into that right away is to find a freelance partner or a contractor that you can trust with some part of your business. So for us early on, it was outsourcing our accounting and bookkeeping to somebody and I think we spend $375 a month for monthly reporting and bookkeeping on all the money we spend. And it was worth it to us to pay to have extra help there, because that was something we did not need to be spending our time doing. It's actually, and in that was actually one of the areas with growth for us, that if somebody couldn't afford our prices, I would say find somebody that can build it for less. Find a partner who builds Divi sites that maybe they're just getting into it, they're just learning. Maybe your client, maybe they're building sites for $500 still. Find that partner that you can send it to and maybe sell it for $650 or sell it for $1,000. Give that freelancer $750. You keep 25% as a referral fee, and build a relationship that way with somebody that you can send business to that doesn't fit, or if you don't have time to do it. But there's still ways to make money on projects that even you're not doing all the way. And so I have that. We do that some in-house. If we have a project we can't take, or if we have a freelancer that needs some work, we may have a project we send over. We just say, hey, build in a 25% is an easy number. Build in 25% for us as far as finding it, nurturing it, getting it to that point where they're doing business. And then, but you take it, you manage it, and it's completely off our plate. We made a few $100, but we didn't have to build the site or do anything. So it's a new revenue stream, and we're helping grow our business. And if that becomes a really good partner, that may be that person as you continue to grow and get more leads that you hire or add to your team down the road.
Yeah. Well, and if it's a fixed price for them too, the better they get and the quicker they get at web design, they could start, you know, if they're making 750 off of 1,000, you know, if they build a site, a 3-page site really quick, then they could make, you know, a few $100. Well, you know, in that case, maybe $100 an hour potentially.
Yeah.
So I think that's a great model. That's definitely, and it sounds like you get room to grow too, because what if they move up and then you could say, well, listen, now we have a $5,000 project. We'll give you, you know, $3,500 or something, you know, for them, particularly if they just like doing the work. I imagine that's ideal because they don't have to do the sales. They don't have to do the invoicing. They don't have to do all the initial stuff. I mean, I imagine there's, you know, you could work that out with how you get content and talking with the client, but shoot, yeah, that sounds like a great model to follow from any scale, whether it's a $5,000 site, $10,000 site, or $1,500 site, or, you know, something smaller.
And we use that exact. Well, let me add to that real quick. Sorry,
sure.
We add to that real quick. We do the same thing if a site's too small or doesn't fit our thing as far as sending it out. We do that, kind of give us a little bit for sending it to you. We do the same thing on inbound leads. So one of the things I mentioned, we do a lot of white label development. The agencies that we white label development for, let's say their low end site is $25,000. They get a ton of people that come to them and say, "Hey, I need a website, but I've only got $10,000 or $5,000." Well, what better relationship to have than an agency that is, you know, reputable in your community, that's then sending those leads back down to you. So we do the same thing with agencies that we white label develop for. If they send us a lead and it's a $5,000 lead, we send them 25%. They didn't have to do it. They didn't have to build anything. All they did was make an email introduction. If we sell it, they're getting, on a $5,000 deal, 25% would be $1,250. They're getting money just for having someone come in the door where they used to not have a place to send their smaller stuff. Right. So it's kind of a chain, but that's been one of the best sales tools for us. Is we've got multiple agencies now that send us leads every month that weren't a fit for them, and we're the little guy that helps them. Gotcha.
Now, okay, so I know you've only got about 10 minutes here, Daniel. I know you got a meeting here pretty soon, so I'll probably ask you some questions here pretty quickly. So how big is the Gruffy Goat team right now, if you don't mind telling us kind of where you guys are at right now?
Yeah, definitely. So Gruffy Goat is 4 people right now that are on payroll. Okay. And we have a network of contractors we use. We probably have 6 to 8 contractors that we use yearly, but 4 employees currently. Okay.
So how do you centralize communication with all that? Are you guys using like Slack or anything like that internally, or email, or what's that look like for you guys?
Yep. So we're pretty much all Slack. Everything's in Slack. As far as a project management tool, we're using what's now called Monday.com. It used to be called Depulse, but it's a great project, very visual, very time and date driven. So it's something we can open up to clients to see as well. But Monday.com, we've had really good success with that. Internally on the sales side, I use Pipedrive to keep track of prospects, and I use PandaDoc for my proposal generation.
Okay. Interesting. I hadn't heard of that. I use Basecamp, and a lot of people use Basecamp or Asana. Yeah, I haven't heard of Monday.com, so I'll check this out. This looks like a pretty cool resource.
Yeah, we were using kind of a combination of Basecamp and Trello for a while, but just kind of started poking around. We looked at a Zoho product as well and really found that we all liked working from spreadsheets internally, and found that this Monday.com kind of had that spreadsheet feel. So we kind of went with that.
Okay, cool. And I love that because there's no right or wrong tool. It's just whatever works, and you go from there. How do you guys, a more particular question, how do you guys manage logins? Do you have like LastPass or something like that with all website logins and tools and things like that? Because I know that can get really tricky. I frustrate myself sometimes because I have my main computer, then I have my laptop, and I'm out in the living room, and I'm like, crap, I got to walk in my office and get my logins, How do you guys do that? This is funny. Nathan actually got me squared away. We're using 1Password for everything now, and I think I'm answering that question correctly, but like for any logins for multiple different systems, 1Password is pretty much what we're using. It tracks everything. I want to say it's $10 a month or $100 a year, something like that. Okay.
But I literally have 80 to 100 logins. I know Nathan has more because of all the hosting accounts and everything, but it's actually it transfers over to your cell phone, your laptop, your desk computer, whatever, and there's an encrypted kind of long form password you have to remember for 1Password, but it's a great place to keep everything all together.
Awesome. Yeah, it looks cool. I'm checking it out right now. And it's funny, John Wooten said that they use it as well. And I thought that he meant that they just use 1Password for everything. And I'm like, well, that's not very secure. No, this is great. I'll check this out as well. Yeah, because that's a big thing. And not many people talk about that. I imagine a team your size, it's crucial. But, particularly once you get into 20, 30 people, my goodness, that's crucial. So that's really good. That's good stuff. How do you, from a support perspective, if do you manage the clients in Monday? Like, do they get access to a project in there to be able to communicate with you, or do they do things mostly through email?
So Monday is only a couple months old for us. We have not done that yet. That's actually one of the reasons we moved to Monday, is we were a little frustrated, like even internally. So when we have multiple different freelancers we work with, some of the other tools like Basecamp and Trello, we were having a little bit of trouble with multiple projects, and then a freelancer being able to see a project that maybe we have 3 designers and we awarded a project to one. If all the designers can see it, that can cause some issues. So we liked Monday had a little better layered security on people can, to where, yes, if we just want a client to see something, we can turn that on. If we only want one freelancer to see it in a private board, we can turn that on. So we have a lot more control over who sees what, and so that there's not as much just visible to everything. And I don't know if Trello and Basecamp offer those levels, but we were probably just too cheap to pay the extra license fees to get that.
Basecamp has, which is why I like it, because you can set just a person up on a project, and then you can put them on the team thread or the client thread, so you can separate all your client stuff. So, and I'll probably stick with it for a while still, but either way, Monday sounds like a very valuable tool as well, because it looks like it's kind of a task manager and a project manager, right?
Yep, it is, and it's something we can keep our own tasks in, and it's it came back to that spreadsheet feel, as we just had these big lists and spreadsheets, and we're like, this kind of fits the way we generally already are working. So it was a good fit for us.
Okay, let's. So we've talked about a lot of positives and pros about kind of scaling and growing your guys' business. What are some of the struggles that you faced with, obviously we all have a lot of the same common struggles from the client end, but what are some of the struggles you faced with growing your team?
Yeah, definitely. So I think right in the early stages, you're a little more intimately connected with your employees. So both Nathan and I came from larger corporate environments where you have multiple channels to get through to get to the ownership. So in a small business, you're pretty well acquainted with the person. You're working directly. An employee is working directly with an owner on a daily basis. So a couple of struggles and struggles. To me, they're growing pains. They're things you just have to go through. But maybe you send a project out to a freelancer and they just do a bad job. And so one of the risks of, if I take a project and we build it internally, or if Nathan was building it, I know every time that Nathan's going to put out an awesome,
right,
really is great. If you use a freelancer that you haven't used, or you're forced to use someone you're not comfortable with, you're taking a pretty big risk, design, dev, whatever, at the outset of the project. And we did have one situation where we ended up being way overdue on timing because the developer was much slower than we had planned on. Good developer, just didn't meet the time objectives. Whereas if we'd done it internally, we would have done whatever we had to do to meet that time frame. So those are, I think, things like that, things that are, you have less control if you're not doing something in-house or using a contractor, because so much of our labor is still contract labor. That's something that I think is a concern, or has been a little bit of a struggle and just a challenge as we've grown.
And that's one of my biggest apprehensions with scaling is I've built such a personal brand with my business in Transit Studios. So it is a separate business name. It's not, Josh Hall Web Design or something, but yeah, that's one of the biggest things where, like, even some projects, because I've subcontracted before and I do have some people I hire out periodically when needed. And it is one of those things where if they do something and it just doesn't represent you well, it goes on your name. And particularly if you've worked with a client for a long time, it can be really hard to have that trust for somebody to represent you. So I imagine it just comes with the territory, and hopefully, I imagine internally it's just where as good as you can make your training process, your in-house processes, and your empowerment to let them do what they do best, then, I imagine it just kind of works out, more and more.
I think support's the same way, actually. I think, for us, and this is something that to people that listen, building some kind of a recurring revenue model, I think, is crucial to being able to expand and grow your business. So Nathan had done a really good job of that with adding hosting, support, and maintenance to every project. We're actually to the point now where if it's a really small project, we require that they take that as part of the price, because it really is a big part of the revenue in the lifetime of a client. So that can actually be one of the areas too. When you start small, if they're buying from one person, or you're a freelancer and it's just you, they know that you're the one supporting their website. So as you grow, that's usually one of the areas that you can get done for less money. And now they're all of a sudden talking to a new contact, and the client can be like, where did so-and-so go? Or, where did the owner go? So that can be something. I think just communicating the change, communicating the transition. People want to see your business do well and grow. And so they'll appreciate that. But if you just all of a sudden it's a new person and you didn't communicate, make sure that your clients know what's going on and that changes are happening and that growth is happening, so they can be excited for you and understand why they're now talking to a new person. Gotcha.
That's a really good point. Yeah, that's a great heads up. Or even if you just do the sales and the intro and just let them know from the get-go that, hey, we do have other people collaborating, and we'll introduce you to our lead designer. I guess you could phrase it however you want. And I back up that point 100%. The recurring income with even just maintenance plans. I know hosting, I'm almost getting out of hosting just because of the troubles with email. And since I don't have a support person, I'm managing all those support questions, which can get really, really hairy unless you have that controlled. But particularly for maintenance plans, if you can maintain a site, that recurring revenue is so nice. And it gives you that buffer if you have slow months, for me, it's just a good way to keep track of clients and, maintain that month to month. They get a report from me knowing what we did on the site, and it's been huge. So back on that for sure. So Daniel, this has been great, man. We've covered some really good stuff. I think hearing your guys' story about how you got started and how you've scaled, from the client side, how you kind of found your key demographic, but then how you're still trying to, profit from some of the smaller clients, but at the same time, you're giving back to other starting designers. I think that's all a really good model for people to follow, even from the smaller perspective, if it's $500 or $1,000 sites. So this has been great, man. Do you have any just kind of like a parting thought or any final advice for somebody who is, maybe wanting to take that step from a one-man shop?
Yeah, I think I would say if you're wanting to take the risk, I would say just know that it is a risk. You're not guaranteed that people will continue to come to you and hire you for web design just because you've done a lot of great stuff in the past. And times change and products change, and there's you see there's other building tools that are coming out now. And I mean, there are things, keep investing in yourself would be one. I'd say keep getting better, keep knowing what's in the marketplace, be aware of what's coming in the web design world. Watch Josh Hall's podcast so you stay up on and on everything that's new and coming. But yeah, if you're doing it, if you've got a desire to grow and you want to take the risk, from a practical level, save up a little bit of money. Start putting a little bit of a few $100 aside. I'm not trying to be Dave Ramsey here, but put a little money aside every month, so that you build a safety net for yourself, so that you could make it for 3 months or 6 months without making a bunch of extra money, and so that you're able to bring in some additional help.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's a question I've been asking everyone. Do you save money up to allow for hiring people, or do you just kind of, charge more? So that's probably your advice, right? To have a little buffer there?
I think it's a hybrid. And yeah, so with Nathan, we started to charge a little bit more when I started, but he had saved up. I had saved up. So we both knew the risks going in, and we basically came up, we wanted to be able to make it for a year, assuming that things stayed the same.
Okay.
And thankfully, we grew a lot faster. I think that's overly conservative, but we grew a lot faster than we had even planned, and opened some really good doors together. So I think, yeah, just if you want that and you want to grow and you want to be able to help more businesses, I would say definitely go for it. Make make some of the more conservative choices on the front end to save up and give yourself a launch pad to be able to make it possible, but go for it. I mean, the worst, I think it sounds bad to even say, but the worst case scenario, you can always go back to building sites one at a time on your own, because you've already got a track record of successfully doing that. So what's the real risk,
That's a great point. And yeah. I mean, even if a couple projects don't go well, then it's not like, it's not like all of your clients are talking behind your back like, dude, did you hear that Josh is, they're not producing the same quality? Like, it doesn't work like that. The word of mouth is spread enough to where, that's a good point. You can always go back to the way it was and kind of learn. So, wow, that's great, man. Well, Daniel, this has been awesome. I don't want to keep you. I know you got to roll here. So appreciate your time. Appreciate your expertise on this. And I'm looking forward to doing another one with you here soon, man. This was good stuff.
Yeah. Let's do it again. Awesome. Thanks, Jeff.
All right, Daniel. Talk to you soon, man.
Yep. We'll see you. Bye-bye.